we're going to make our zipper pockets. So you need your lining panel, your two overlays that you've already cut, and your two zipper pocket linings, the larger and the smaller one. So I'm just going to pop those out of the way because all I need at the moment is the lining panel and one of my overlays. Now I've made a little mark that is the top edge of my lining panel, and I've just done that right near to the edge because that will be covered. And it's always worth remembering which is the top end, because if you get this the wrong way around, it won't fold properly. So it really isn't worth getting it wrong. It's worth making that little mark. And I've made marks on the side of my panel rather than right the way across. One of them is 2.5 inches from the top edge, and the other one is 7.25 inches from the top edge. And I'm going to take my first overlay panel and I'm going to lay it so that the top edge of the overlay panel sits below that 2.5 inch mark. And it goes literally right the way across my lining. So I'm just going to pop a clip on. Oh, my chair's all creaky today. I probably need a bit of WD-40 on it. I promise it's the chair and not me that's creaking. So I'm now going to stitch from this side to this side on the outside edge on the top and the bottom of my overlay. I'm stitching at an 1/8 inch seam allowance away from the outside edge. So I'm just going to move that clip out of the way so that my foot doesn't bang on it. Slightly longer stitch length. You don't need to back stitch because the edges of this will be caught within the outside edges of the exterior panel. Sorry, I've gone very quiet. That's because I'm using a contrast thread, and if I start trying to talk while I'm doing it, it could all go horribly wrong. So that's stitched in place, and you can see my stitching is very close to the edge. It's an 1/8 inch away from the top or the bottom edge, whichever. I'm going to do exactly the same thing with my second overlay panel, and I'm going to lay it underneath that 7.5 inch mark, 7.25 inch mark, I apologise. So I don't think I've measured very well because that doesn't look the same both sides, so let me just double check that. That looks all right. No, it's actually an optical illusion because they look right. It looks fine when I put it on there. For some reason, when I was looking at it, it just didn't look right. It looked like one was higher than the other. So So just clipping it in place, and the top edge of that overlay is sitting below that mark. And I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm very sorry if I get quiet. And the same on the bottom edge. You can see there's a great deal of repetition going on here. You're doing the same thing. And having just told you you don't need to backstitch, I find myself doing it, but I think it's habit rather than necessity in this instance. We appear to have run out of bobbin thread. Okay. Let me just check that. I have indeed. I will show you how we can fix that though. So you can see here that I've got almost halfway, well, almost to the end, and I've run out of thread, bobbin thread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an awl to just unpick a few stitches. So the lesson to be learned is make sure you've got bobbin thread before you start doing this, because otherwise you're going to have to fix it. So I'm unpicking perhaps half a dozen stitches. I'm going to use my self-threading needle, and I'm going to take the thread from the front of my work through to the back of my work, going through the last hole that I've made. And when I've unpicked, that will give me a little bit of thread on the back that I can use to tie off my two threads together, which will stop my previous stitching unravelling. Let's put some thread on my bobbin. It's always good to see you're not the only person that does this. It happens to all of us, no matter how careful you are. So let's just do a new bobbin. It's taken me a little while to get used to the way this machine runs its bobbin, winds its bobbin, because it's got a button that makes it work. My old machine, or my normal machine, you press the foot pedal to make it wind the bobbin, which completely threw me when I got this. There we go. So we now have a nice new bobbin in. And what I'm going to do is go back to where my last stitch was. So I think you can see there that stitch finishes there. And I'm going to try and drop my needle in to where that last stitch was. that's gone in. I've got a long thread on the top and the bottom, and I'm just going to keep going, stitching along that line. I haven't changed the stitch length or anything else, so as long as I stay on the same line, it should fall, the needle should go through the holes that were previously made. That's perfect. And then I'm going to take my self-threading needle through that hole, and I'm going to take that thread from the front to the back and tie it off. And what you end up with is a lovely line of stitching with absolutely no obvious sign that you've had a bit of a catastrophe. I often see people ripping out top stitching because they've run out of bobbin thread, and it just isn't necessary. You can rejoin as long as you're careful, and as long as you just unpick a few stitches so that you've got enough thread. There we go, look. You can't tell. There's no obvious stop or start. And that stitching looks beautiful. So it's you know, it's worth just taking the effort, taking the time to just start again, putting your bobbin in and going from there. So the next piece we're going to do is we're going to trim out the fabric from behind our overlay. So I'm just going to fold that in half. Now you can use a craft knife if you want to, or a pair of scissors. I'm just literally making a cut that goes inside the aperture that we've got. So you can see there that I've just literally cut that. I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to use my scissors, and I'm just going to trim away the fabric around the aperture from the reverse. Be careful you don't cut your overlay. You're just taking out the fabric so that you won't be able to see any of the fabric from the front of your work. Do be careful. It's really easy to kind of trim into your overlay if you're not paying attention. It doesn't have to be particularly tidy. This will not show. You're going to do the same for both of the pockets. Once I've got this one out, I'll show you. There. Now that's not particularly tidy, but that won't show. On the front, however, what you have is a perfect aperture to put your zipper pocket in, and you can't see any of the fabric on the back. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other zipper pocket. Just trim it out, and there we go. Now I just need to change my foot, because now I need a zipper foot. And now you're going to get your lining panels. Now we have two sets of lining panels, one larger, one smaller. What What you need is the larger set, so the ones that are deeper. Pop the other ones out of the way. Turn your lining panels so that they're sitting with the lining, back of the lining showing, so the wrong side of the lining, but your zipper will be on the top. Your zipper needs to be so that it closes to the left. That's if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, turn it the other way so that it closes to the right. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to do it that way. I'm going to take my exterior panel, making sure that the top is, I've got it orientated the right way. So this is the top, and I'm going to lay my overlay over the top of that zipper. I'm matching up the sides of the zipper pocket so that it's all nice and straight and hunky-dory. You need your teeth, to be central within that aperture. So the teeth of the zipper need to be central within that aperture. Some people like to use a bit of double-sided tape or even a little bit of fabric glue. I don't. I like to do it by eye, make sure that it's where it needs to be, and then I'll move it to the machine and I'll start stitching. I've left a long thread on the top and the bottom so that I can bury and tie off my threads, because again, I don't want a visible finish and start to my stitching. And I'm going to stitch all the way around that aperture, ensuring that my zipper teeth stay nice and central to secure my zipper in place. The pocket linings are still outwards, so they're not going to get in the way. I am using an awl for this. I like to keep, I like to hold it down with my awl. Again, take it nice and slowly, and you're stitching approximately 1/8 of an inch away from the side of the zipper aperture. I like to be able to just adjust it slightly if I need to. That's why I don't like to use double-sided tape, aside from the fact that I just get into such a muddle with double-sided tape. I know a lot of people love it, it's just not my thing. Pivot and come up and over your zipper now. If you want to hand crank it, you can do. If you're using a plastic zipper, a nylon zipper, then you should be able to stitch across the top of your zipper teeth without too much bother. The needle will just slide down between the teeth, and then we're going to come back down the other side. Now you can, I'm using number 3 zippers. You can use a larger zipper for this if you want to. You need to make, if you're going to use a number 4.5 or number 5, you need to make your zipper overlay 1/8 of an inch deeper, so 1 1/8 of an inch deep, and make your aperture 3/8 of an inch wide to accommodate the wider teeth on a bigger zipper. I just think a bigger zipper is perhaps overkill on something that's only a small project. It's very much personal preference, and I know a lot of people like to use the bigger zippers because you get all the fancy zipper pulls for them. Now coming down, and I'm just going to move my zipper pull out of the way because I don't want my foot to catch on the zipper pull, so I'm just going to use my awl to wiggle that out of the way. Then we're going to come down over those teeth again. Again, be careful, just take it slowly. And what we're going to try and do is come back and land in the hole that was the last stitch, or the first stitch that we made. I'm going to raise the foot, pull my work out, trim off my threads, and I'm going to take both of these threads from the front of my work, pop them through a self-threading needle, and I do them both at once, and then bring them back in so that they go through, and there is no then obvious start and stop to my stitching. I'm just going to tie those off on the reverse with the two threads that we had, one at the beginning and one at the end of my stitching on the reverse of my work. And you can pop a little bit of glue on there if you want to, just to secure those threads, but they won't be any great bother. And there we have a beautiful inserted pocket. Now remember where the top of your lining fabric is, and what you're going to do is you're going to push your two pocket linings down towards the bottom, so away from the top edge. I'm going to change my foot back over, because I know a lot of people, and I sew all the time with my Teflon foot on, it has to be said, but I know a lot of people like to do the next bit with a zipper foot on. I cannot do that. I get most agitated. So our linings are pushed down towards the bottom. We're going to, you notice that one is slightly longer than the other, and we're going to just trim off that little bit of excess. There we go. Double check that this is the top of your lining, and your lining panels from your pocket are going down towards the bottom of your panel. We're going to pull the side of this panel away, and you can see there the pocket linings are exposed, and we're going to stitch from the top here. Let's just shorten my stitch length. Oh, golly, spontaneous throwing of things off of the table. We're going to stitch down the side of the zipper pocket, across the zipper, and I'm using approximately a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance here. And you can pull the rest of the lining panel out of the way to come along the bottom of the zipper pocket. Because we don't turn this project, it's not needing to be turned inside out, we don't need to leave the pocket open. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to pull the lining out of the way, and we're going to come up the other side of the pocket. I am going to trim down my seam allowance by approximately half on the sides. I'm not going to bother with the bottom. It's not an essential, but it does make it easier to do the last bit of stitching when you're finally constructing, if you take off that little bit of excess seam allowance. It really depends on your machine. Actually, this machine will go through it all, but it's a personal preference. So that's my first zipper pocket fully installed and ready to go. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the second zipper pocket. Again, make sure you've got it orientated the right way, so the zipper is closing to the left if you're right-handed, closing to the right if you're left-handed. Make sure that your lining panel is the right way up. Pop your lining panel over that zipper, and we're going to top stitch around the outside again. Now I'm going to turn the camera off because you don't need to see me doing it a second time. It's exactly the same process. The important things to remember are that the lining panels need to go, when you fold them over, is that they need to come towards the bottom of your lining panel. So the pocket lining panels need to fold down towards the bottom, that you orientate your zippers the same way. I think that's probably it. You must make sure that the top of your lining panel is the furthest away so that your pockets are actually facing downwards towards the bottom. So I am going to finish this second one, and then I'll come back to you with the next stage.